Good morning and welcome back to the Celtic Way. I'm Tony Haggerty and I'm joined today by Ryan McGinley at the Ryan McGinley. As you know, I'm at a Haggerty10 on the X and Twitter handle. Good morning, Ryan. How you doing? You had the weekend off, sir. You have a good
Yeah,
weekend?
I think it was a good weekend, nice wee refresh. But it's the season. The season starts this week. This is the a big week in the lead up to the start of the domestic campaign for Celtic. I'm just hoping that things heat up in the transfer market as well to go along with that. But yeah, these are the weeks that you look forward to when covering Celtic, the return of football. It feels like forever since Celtic last played a competitive game when you think of that game against Aberdeen in the Scottish Cup final. It's been a while, but we're here, and the countdown is now on to Sunday afternoon for Flag Day.
Did you manage to catch the Como Cup game against Al Ahly? Celtic won on penalties 5-3. Shin Yamada made his debut for Celtic, Ryan. So Celtic finished third in the Como Cup. Did you catch any of that? Did you manage to see any of it?
I watched bits and bobs of the game. I had some plans on Saturday night, but I did manage to catch a little bit of the game. I seen all the goals, so it was a screamer from Al Ali's perspective. But Celtic scored the equaliser through Austin Trusty, a really good finish. I seen on Instagram that one of his mates was saying, "Play Austin Trusty through the middle from now on," because he's clearly a good striker of the ball. Yeah, it went to penalties. And the penalties from Celtic were really good. Good save from Sinisalo to deny one of their strikers or their forward players. And yes, Celtic got the win on the night. That'll be a good confidence booster for them. And from what I witnessed of Shin Yamada, and there was a bit of there's an extended highlights going about on Twitter this morning. He looks to be a real live wire through the middle, really quick but really strong as well. So definitely a player to keep an eye on in the weeks and months ahead for Celtic.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yamada came on, Ryan, for the second half and he made a lasting impression on the Celtic supporters, and he would have scored a goal had Marco Tilio released the ball a bit sooner. Well, he did score a goal when he would have been caught offside had Marco
It's a
Tilio
good finish as well, Tony.
finish. Yes, indeed. A real striker's finish. I wrote that in my instant analysis, which is still up on the Celtic website. Yeah, I did. It starts those behaviours, Ryan. He was pointing. He was actually pointing where he wanted the ball to Tilio, who just delayed the pass, and he was caught marginally offside. But he showed good striker's instinct and finished. And he was talking about his move to Celtic, Ryan, and it's on the website as well. You can have a look. But here's a flavour of what Shinya Mada said about joining Celtic and making his debut against Al Ahly. He said, "I thought I'd scored in the second half, but I was offside. I wish I'd had the pass earlier. I've only come to the club for a week, so we need to understand each other's strengths better and have better connections. I need to demand that my teammates pass in certain movements. That part of my game is one I need to improve. I have a lot of confidence, and however, with my teammates, I can't score, and I need to build that relationship with them." And then he was talking about why he signed for Celtic. He said, "I'm not too young anymore. I wanted to challenge myself. I had the option to stay in Japan as well, but the decision I made was good for my career. I wanted to contribute more, and I had another dream to pursue for my career. And by coming to Celtic, I feel I can improve more, and that's why I made the decision. In the Champions League as a competition I have admired and dreamt of playing in." So Shinya talking to the press Ryan and explaining why and talking about connection with his teammates and telling you why he signed for Celtic. So it could be a win-win moving forward, Ryan.
Yeah, he's a 25-year-old striker, as he said. He's not young in terms of, well, maybe young in terms of actual living age, but in terms of a footballer, he's probably about midway through, just heading into the prime of his career, despite the fact what 2 3 seasons for Kawasaki. So effectively, he is a bit of a baby for football, but in terms of his actual age as a footballer, he's entering into his so-called prime. Yeah, I'm impressed with all of the comments that he made, and I just don't think that this move would have transpired if it wasn't for the likes of Kyogo coming to the club, Daizen Maeda coming to the club, Ange Postecoglou coming to the club. It's that pathway has now been set for these Japanese players to make the move, and South Korean players as well. You got to add that into the mix too. Japanese and South Korean players now have that pathway to join Celtic because of Ange Postecoglou and his intervention in the transfer window. So yeah, I liked hearing that both Inamura and Rio Hatate were giving him were giving Celtic glowing terms and glowing praise ahead of the move. That would have certainly helped him in his decision. But I think he realises that he could have stayed in his comfort zone, go to another team in Japan, but he wants to go and prove himself, get out there and see if he can do it in European football. And in terms of first impressions, just by the look of him and the way that he played against Al Ahly, I was pretty impressed with him.
He's well aware of Kyogo scoring 85 goals, 165 games for Celtic, because he was asked about that, and he said, I hope to perform as well as him and contribute to Celtic. I have speed at 1v1s. I like to run behind the defenders. That is one of my strengths. We saw that in action, Ryan, on Saturday, when the goal that he given offside due to Marco Tilio being a bit slow with the forward pass. But yeah, I like that, the movement, and he ran the channels a couple of times and he showed he had some strength as well about him, Ryan. So I was quite excited.
That was what I was more excited about than the initial speed, to be honest with you. That tells me that he won't get pushed about in Scottish football. Rather, he might be doing the pushing about as well, which is really good. And that was maybe one of Kyogo's weaknesses in his game. Yes, he was a smart, really technical striker or forward, wherever he was playing, but he could get pushed off the ball at times, and he could be, that there was games in which he could be anonymous. He did have a wee bit of strength about him. But this guy looks as if he'll give it out and take it as well as receive it, and I like to see that from a striker. He seems really hungry. I like his post-match interview as well. He comes across as a pretty confident guy. I also remember Ange Postecoglou saying to not group all the Japanese players in the one, not to group them all together, but treat them as individuals. And you can even see that from the translation. He speaks differently from Hatate, Kyogo, and Daisen Maeda as well. So you've got to treat them individually. And yeah, from what he's saying, he seems like a pretty grounded but confident person, and definitely someone that can impact the team straight away.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very early, Ryan, but I think player coming in and he made an impact, didn't he? And he's got every Celtic supporter talking. And then myself and John were talking after the game, and he asked me, has he played himself into contention for St Mirren? And I said he's played himself into the starting lineup for St Mirren, if you're asking me.
Yeah, and I would say that's due in part to Yamada not really setting the heather alight in pre-season. It's quite obvious and evident that he is struggling for form at the top end of the pitch, despite him having a couple of nice wee moments against Newcastle in particular, I felt, and in the first half against Ajax. Some nice hold-up play, some nice passing here and there, but, as a striker, he will be judged, and I know Brendan Rodgers won't talk about strikers scoring every game, and he doesn't expect his strikers to score every game. It's different for the Celtic support and the people who cover Celtic as well. You want a striker to be scoring every single game, and at the moment, I'm not saying he can't be that player, but he's not shown that ability that he can score 2, 3, 4 games on the trot at the moment. He seems to be out of confidence when it comes to striking the ball at the top end of the park. Yes, his link-up play has been a little bit better as of late, but I think there's a bit of confidence or a lack of confidence when he gets a chance or an opportunity in front of goal. Now that can all be changed with a good performance against St Mirren at the weekend, but as things stand, I think that striking slot is right up for grabs.
Indeed. Now something's happened here to my camera, Ryan, which is not great, is it? Oh, there we go. Oh, dear. The wonders of live telly, isn't it? It's fallen off its perch. There you go. Dear. You can keep them entertained.
Yeah, but while you're sorting that, I just think that the striking position is right up for grabs when it comes to Celtic. Shin Yamada is shown from very early on that he can be that player that could potentially lead the line for Celtic and be that player that can make the initial impact. It didn't even take Kyogo that long to be a goal scorer for Celtic. I think he scored in his second game against Jablonec in the Europa League qualifiers. So he can be that player, and I think it helps that he's halfway through his season as well. He does not need to catch up with fitness. He's been playing for Japan, playing for the national team. So all it takes is him. I think all it will take for him is to get to know his new teammates, because the fitness levels are already there. But I think that's something that needs to be managed in the second half of the season as well.
Yeah. Now, Ryan, over the course of the weekend, we've got more transfer news breaking. Celtic have made 3 bids now for Jacob Breum, and 1.5 million, 1.75 million, and 3 million. Go Ahead Eagles are wanting 3. They want 6.5 million, Ryan, and they're waiting to see if Celtic will go in with a 4th offer. It was the Herald Stephen McGowan that broke that story, saying Celtic had went in for going in 3 times. Do you see a 4th offer being made, Ryan? Is this somebody who Celtic really want?
I think with the amount of bids that have been in already for the player, it's clearly someone that Celtic are really interested in. There has been conflicting reports as to whether or not there have been offers, but we're getting it from a pretty good source that Celtic have been chasing this player for a good while now. Seems to be an impressive youngster, somebody coming through in the Dutch top flight, which is quite exciting. I think it's a good level to be signing players from. That acclimatisation isn't really needed there as well, because the league, you're playing in Europe already, you're going to Scotland, maybe there is perhaps that physicality coming into Scottish football, but that's not to say there isn't physicality in the Dutch league either. He's a young player, he's coming through, the numbers are pretty good. I think he's got double digits in goals and got a few assists last season as well, and at the age of 21 he's not the finished article. It's not often that Celtic will be going and signing the finished article for their first team, because they'll look at that as being a potential player to come in and then grow and then potentially sell on in a couple of years. But 21 years old, Celtic need wingers. They need wingers. I think they needed wingers yesterday, to be honest with you. There's been a bit of a frustration online that more business hasn't been done as of yet. But if they're waiting for the right, I'd rather they go and sign the right player than go and sign somebody for the sake of it. And if they've done their scouting on Jacob Breum and he fits the mould that Brendan Rodgers is looking for in a winger, then get the deal done basically.
11 goals, 5 assists, Ryan, and 31 appearances last year. That's not too bad, is it? That's a healthy contribution for a 21-year-old in the Eredivisie.
Yeah, a really good level. Go Ahead Eagles have been, I think they've been quite up and down in terms of the leagues, in terms of promotion and relegation, but they're certainly a name I recognise. The thing about Dutch football, even out with Ajax, PSV, Feyenoord, etc., there's always these teams that seem to have one or two prized assets, the likes of Heerenveen, Go Ahead Eagles, there's other examples there of players coming through. They always seem to have that one prized asset that's maybe worth more than their other players, which is the same in a lot of football, to be fair. They'll always have youngsters coming through as somebody that they can sell on when the valuation is met. But by all accounts, he seems like a pretty exciting player. I think people have watched the clips of him and they quite like what they see. 21-year-old, it ticks a lot of boxes, and you would hope that if Celtic like this player, they'll put in the valuation that Go Ahead Eagles have of the player, or there's an agreement found in the middle between the two clubs. But I would rather they bring in the players that are going to be successful for the whole season, rather than bringing in somebody, maybe making an initial impact and then fading away in the second half. If it means that they take a little bit more time to get their number one choice or one of their number one choices, then I'm all for that, because you've got to take into account the fact it's a whole season and not just bringing in players specifically for a qualifier, as important as that qualifier is for Celtic.
Are you getting frustrated, Ryan, though, that Celtic seem to be dragging their heels in the transfer market? That's 3 bids already for this player who they seem to, well, their indications are that they want him, and that they've failed with 3 bids already, and now they know the asking price. I think the player himself has indicated that he would like to move to Celtic, so it's over to Celtic. The ball's very much in their court.
Yeah, I'm not frustrated. I think partly due to the fact that we've been in this position before. Celtic have been in this position where you're a little bit worried about qualifiers, and you want the players to come in. And I'm not worried as such, because I think that Celtic will get the business done, and they've done business before. I think it's more the timing of, or lack of, signings in preparation for this qualifier. Now, they haven't been scared to spend in recent years. They spent, £11 million on Arne Engels, they spent £9 million on Adamida and 5.5 on Austin Trusty, so they have spent money in the past. The only thing is, those specifically Trusty and Engels, they came in at the end of the window.
Yeah,
For
late.
Celtic, I think they need the players just now so that they can play in that qualifier. I'd rather they didn't risk it. And if you were to bring in a player just now and the qualifiers are in 2-3 weeks' time, there's still that question mark as to whether they would actually play the game, because you don't know if they're fully acclimatised to their new team yet. Obviously, if you spend quite a bit on a player, then you would expect them to be in the first team and compete, because they'll be playing in the Champions League, so they should be able to play in the qualifier. But yeah, I just want them to get business done. They did well at the start of the window, getting like Kieran Tierney in, Benjamin Nygren. That was a good cut price deal that they got for him, and he looks like a player that's going to impact the first team from pretty early on, which is good. But apart from that, Shin Yamada coming through, but we'd heard that deal was getting done for weeks before it actually happened. Apart from that, it's gone pretty quiet, especially in some key areas that I think that Celtic need to strengthen in. But thankfully, there has been a defender linked in the past 24 hours as well.
Yeah, that defender from Manchester City, Ryan. Celtic are allegedly a number of teams, English teams, interested in Breum Simpson-Pusey, according to a report. The champions have tabled a loan deal for the powerful defender, and he made 6 appearances for Manchester City last season, Ryan. He played them in the Premier League and some Champions League matches, and he was also the Premier League 2 Player of the Year, and captain Manchester City to that title. But seemingly the 19-year-old centre-back wants to go out and play regular first-team football, Ryan, and Celtic could be one of those options. Celtic have from Manchester City. They've plucked players from Manchester City in the past very well. We all know who they are. Jason Denayer being one of those defenders as well. So, yeah, I mean, you say it's nice to be linked with them, a move for a defender, but I'd rather these players come in, Ryan, if that's the case, bring them in.
I'd rather they come in, and I'd rather they come in with options to buy as well. Any loan deal for Celtic nowadays, I just don't think that it benefits Celtic long term to be developing other teams' players without the option to buy them outright, and that's what I would be hoping if Breum Simpson-Pusey was to come into Celtic as a young defender. I would hope that there's an option to buy linked to this player. Yep. And a 19-year-old defender has played games for Pep Guardiola's Man City. I believe he played against Sporting Club earlier on last season. That was when Amarim was the Sporting manager. I think it was a bit of a difficult game for him in particular. But a 19-year-old, Premier League 2 Player of the Year for Manchester City. A really good pedigree. Manchester City make a lot of good young players. Now, they don't necessarily make it into the first team all the time, but you'll find that even these players that do make that breakthrough, maybe make 1 or 2 appearances for Man City, they go to Germany, they go to the Netherlands, they go to different places. It's a really successful academy in terms of bringing senior professionals into football, bring them into senior football, and then they'll apply their trade elsewhere. For Celtic, they've had a really fruitful relationship with Manchester City in years gone by. Jason Denayer being probably one of the best examples. Dedrick Boyata as well, they signed from Manchester City. Patrick Roberts. So it's a good level that they would be signing from if that was the case. He's played some first team football as well, which will be a wee bit of an exciting factor for the Celtic supporters. The fact that he's not just been playing Premier League 2 football, he's actually played in the first team and made appearances for Pep Guardiola and made that jump up. There's been a number of youth players that have been making their way into Pep Guardiola's team due to an ageing starting 11 and bench that Manchester City have. And if he's making that starting lineup or he's making the bench on occasions, then it shows you what the best manager in the world thinks of the player. And yeah, if Celtic are to sign this player, I'd rather they get an option to buy on him. But it's one of those ones where Celtic need a defender. I think they need a dance partner for Cameron Carter-Vickers in that centre-back position. And if Simpson-Pusey is going to be that player, then so be it, really.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would prefer a loan option to buy. He ticks a lot of boxes. He's young and he's hungry, and I think he could do a job for Celtic in terms of coming in and being young enough, Ryan, and also if he wants to advance his career, there is a possibility for the player to play at the Champions League level, which would be an exciting proposition for him. I think a number of English clubs also want him as well. But we've said before, Celtic is it's a good place to come and learn your trade, play under, an elite level manager, play at the highest level of club football, all being the assumption that Celtic get through the qualifiers, which as the time ticks on, I'm saying you get increasingly agitated about the lack of bodies coming in, but a player like that could help you get to where you want to go, Ryan.
Yes, and he's got Champions League football experience as well. This is the exciting part, I would say, for Celtic. He's already played in the Champions League for Manchester City, so he's had that exposure to European football already. He'll be wanting more of that. Maybe that's why Celtic are in for him, because he needs more exposure to Champions League and or Europa League, depending on where Celtic play. Obviously, Celtic have got to get through a qualifier. But having a player like Simpson-Pusey in the defence for the qualifier could be the difference between Celtic getting through the Champions League qualifier or not. So if he's a player that knows that level, that's played at that level before and can operate at that level, then that's a plus for Celtic going into the qualifier. And I'd be pretty impressed if he was to instantly make his impact on the team by getting straight in, even if Celtic sign him on loan. A good level, 19-year-old, seemingly got a very upward trajectory in football. I just want to see that option to buy inserted on him as well. With even now, I think that Manchester City can even put a buyback clause in that. You see a number of Spanish teams doing that for players. I think a couple of English teams have been doing it recently as well. I'd like to see a buyback clause if there was an option to buy. Just so that both sides are happy. Ideally, I wouldn't want to see a buyback clause, but at the same time, if that's a way that you could get the player in permanently, then I think that would make sense for both teams.
Now, we've witnessed over the course of the pre-season games, Ryan, we've witnessed Austin Trusty, Liam Scales and Dane Murray all playing in central defence. What's your thoughts on the future of those guys? Do you think it's anyone from those three to partner Cameron Carter-Vickers in the Champions League qualifiers, or do you think Celtic will go out and sign a defender before the Champions League qualifiers start? Because the likes of Dane Murray's just starting to make an impression and impact, isn't he?
Yeah, and I would hope that his development can happen at Celtic. Now, will Dane Murray need a loan move, maybe at a Premiership side? Potentially, if Celtic are going to bring in another defender, then that position looks really, really busy. It doesn't look as if Liam Scales is going to go anywhere. Brendan Rodgers can rely on that player seemingly. Austin Trusty, I think, has had a pretty good pre-season. I think he's shown his level. I've seen him tussling with
Ivan Toney.
Yeah, that was a bit of a strange clip, but it shows that aggression that he's got in his game, and I like it. I like it when Austin Trusty is aggressive, because it means that he's locked in and he's ready to defend against a really good striker in England international. And by all accounts, after that sort of scuffle that they had, he did win the header, and it was Ivan Toney that was on the ground. So I think when he's locked in, he can be a really good defender. It's just my worry about him is that sometimes his concentration levels or the physicality can sometimes get the better of him in certain situations. Akin to Chris Julian, I'd say the two are quite similar in terms of that. Sometimes they would get involved in a battle that they didn't need to. I remember in particular you and I were at the Dundee game where Brendan Rodgers had some choice words to say to his coaches about Austin Trusty's defending that night. We've seen the good and the bad of Austin Trusty. If he can stay more good than bad, then he's definitely got a place at Celtic. But at the same time, I also think he's an asset, and down south there'd be teams that could potentially be looking for him looking for a player like him ahead of next season in the Championship, or maybe the lower end of the English Premier League. So it's an interesting one. I like the fact that they've already moved on Gustav Lagerbielke and Mike Nawrowski, players that, despite some people liking what they had to offer the team, I don't think they had a future under Brendan Rodgers. I think maybe one more defender needs to leave before you bring in another centre back for that area. But I think it remains to be seen who that's going to be at this moment in time. If you were to ask me who's starting on Sunday, I think it would be Cameron Carter-Vickers and Austin Trusty. But Brendan Rodgers has thrown a couple of curveballs in the past.
Indeed. I mean, he likes Dane Murray, doesn't he? He's mentioned him before a few times. He even mentioned him when he was out injured. And
he passes the eye test, Tony. I think coming out from the back, playing out from the back, he looks really comfortable in that. He's also physically grown as well. Mm-hmm. If you know anything about Dane Murray, you know that he's had a really difficult couple of years in professional football since making that initial breakthrough for Ange Postecoglou against Midtjylland. I do believe if he wasn't injured, he would have played quite a number of games for both Ange Postecoglou and Brendan Rodgers at this point. But I think it was two serious knee injuries in 2 years have been really painful for him, clearly, but debilitating in his football development as well. I'm glad to see him back, glad to see him playing football. I think playing regular football is going to be massive for him, whether it's at Celtic or somewhere else. If he isn't playing for Celtic, then I would want him to be playing every week for a team in the Premiership.
Indeed. Now, Ryan, the domestic season is almost upon us, and Celtic were drawn against Falkirk in the League Cup last 16. And an exciting tussle, because they had an exciting tussle with Falkirk, the same competition last season, didn't they?
They did. I think it was just a round after, wasn't it? Because Celtic played Hibs at home, and then they played Falkirk at home in the next round. What was the score that day? It was 5-2 to Celtic.
5-2, yeah.
But it was a real. There was, for a while, I was quite openly saying that Falkirk were one of the better sides that travelled to Celtic Park, definitely domestically, in the whole of Scotland, because of the way that they played that free-flowing football, the football without fear under John McGlynn. He just plays football. His teams play football seemingly the right way, where they want to be attacking, and from getting his side promoted from League One to the Championship, and then promotion again the following year. It's really impressive work by the former Celtic analyst, because he did work under Brendan Rodgers for a spell. Yeah. He's got a lot of nice things to say about Brendan Rodgers too. Yeah, I think it's a good draw for Celtic personally, because I think Falkirk will want to play football against Celtic, and that will suit the home side in that game. But it'll be a challenge like it was last year, around later in the League Cup. It'll be an exciting game to witness at Celtic Park at the end of August, or the middle of August.
Also see the return of Scott Bain in between the sticks to Celtic Park as well, Ryan.
Yeah, and I'm glad that he's made that move this summer. He clearly wasn't going to get football at Celtic. He's not been getting a lot of football over the past 3-4 years. Quite happy to be that third choice goalkeeper, and by all accounts a really popular member of the dressing room, which is important. I think that role has gained even more significance. You're not just there to fill up the numbers or fill up the squad. You're there to actually add to the dressing room as well. You hear that with multiple goalkeepers, older goalkeepers that are third choice. They're there to not just to be that option if players are injured, but to also bring something to the dressing room, be that source of experience. And he'll bring that to Falkirk, coupled with the fact that he might get more game time with Falkirk too. So I think it's a good move for all parties, and Celtic have got a younger goalkeeper in Ross Doon that'll be challenging as well.
And Ryan, as I say, the season starts on Sunday. How much or how excited are you for that? Or are Celtic ready to kick off and unfurl the flag against St Mirren? Are they ready for that challenge?
I think they're ready domestically. I think the questions remain on the European stage. Have they done enough business to improve in Europe? Because you know that the teams that they'll be coming up against have improved. You're watching what the Premier League clubs are doing down south, the signings that they're making. And I'm not saying for a minute that Celtic need to go and match that, because they can't. One player in the Premier League will dwarf everything that Celtic spend in the transfer window this summer. But they do need to improve in areas, wee bit of squad depth here and there, and real competition in areas too. I want a centre-back to come in and immediately grab that spot alongside Cameron Carter-Vickers. I want the winger to come in and immediately be Nicholas Kuhn's replacement at right wing. Another striker to come through the door and immediately announce himself as Celtic's number 9, their first choice number 9. So yeah, I think there's areas that need to be strengthened, but I've got belief that they will do it despite the frustrations by many online. I think they realise how big it is, not just to get into these qualifiers, but to actually do well in the Champions League. Everybody else has improved. It's time that Celtic improve in that front as well.
Conversely, excited to see the likes of Nygren and Yamada play in front of a full house Celtic Park, kick off the domestic season. Because for me right now, they're both in my starting lineup, Ryan, for Sunday.
Yeah, I'd probably play Shin Yamada through the middle as well, just given that they did that with Kyogo. You know, one of his first home game I remember was against Dundee, and
Yeah.
I'm trying not to make the comparisons between Kyogo and Yamada, but the two are in similar situations where they came in halfway through the season across the world, almost fully across the world, and immediately Kyogo made an impact. He scored a hat-trick against Dundee in the first home game of the season.
Should have had a double hat trick,
That
Ryan.
I know. He missed about two or three massive chances. I also remember Ryan Christie being incredible that day as well. What could have been under Ange Postecoglou for Ryan Christie, certainly. Throw in that element of surprise. I think that St Mirren will be expecting to play against Adamida, but why not just throw in Yamada straight from the off and bring something different? I think that would really excite the Celtic support that are coming to the games. Whether Brendan Rodgers does that or not is a different story. But if it was me, I'd be throwing him in straight from the off and giving him that opportunity to shine.
Yeah, we'll be previewing the game all during the week, Ryan, and we'll obviously keep our eye out on signings, any signings that come in before the big kick-off, Sunday, August the 3rd, Celtic versus St Mirren, Celtic unfurling the league flag. Can't wait for that, Ryan. It just seems to have been a long pre-season. I don't know how you felt about it.
Yeah, it's been a very, very long pre-season. Even before then, you had the Club World Cup, and I know that many people switched off when the Club World Cup was on. I was still watching it just to get some of my football fix. But it has been a long one. You know, it does feel like ages ago that Celtic played Queen's Park in that first pre-season friendly. Since then, they've played against Cork, and then they had those couple of games in Portugal. Now they've had the Como Cup. They had the Newcastle game in between those, so they'll be well prepped fitness wise. It's just all about can they reach higher levels, both domestically and in European competition this season. To do that, I think they'll need reinforcements, but I think it's very much a watch this space at the moment. Hopefully, we get some news this week that deals are far down the line and that they can come in and immediately make an impact. Ideally, you want to be putting these new players on the bench at the weekend against St Mirren, but that's in an ideal world, I guess, Tony.
We don't live in an ideal world, and we certainly don't live in an ideal world when it comes to Celtic and transfers. We shall chew the cud over that for many days to come throughout the transfer window. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Over 700 people, 750 people joining us on the live stream. Really appreciate it. We'll do it all again tomorrow with whatever combination on the Celtic Way. Ryan, thank you for that stellar contribution again. Have a wonderful day. Countdown to the 2025-26 season continues, Ryan. It's not far away now.
Yep, absolutely. It's getting closer and closer, and I'm just looking forward to it.
Guys, we'll see you all tomorrow. Take care. Have a good day.
Cheers, guys.